Hello everyone, Gebatron here. In this video we're gonna talk about some tips and tricks to the marking system in the game Hell Let Loose. But before we get into that, we already covered some settings for the marking system. We covered the commander role and the marking system. We covered the squad leader, but we didn't cover just the regular roles like the medics, just the regular infantry roles. If you want to learn more about that other stuff, I'll leave uh, links to those videos in the description below. I'll also put some cards in the top right-hand corner. But so before we get into the tips and tricks, we'll talk about those roles. The only mark you can leave as a normal squad member is a ping, and pings as a normal squad member are only visible to your squad. So if we hit T, look in the bottom left-hand corner there, you can see Fairing Tail and Gebatron are both in the Able squad. So the only two people right now that could see that mark is Fairing Tail and Gebatron. If we had a full squad, they'd all be able to see it, but that's that. Now we're going to start getting into some of the tips, and there's more than one way to leave a mark as a squad member. You can hit M, and you can click on the map, and you can place a ping that way. Why is that important? Well, let's just redeploy here. When you die, I hear a lot of people say on my dead body or they're heading south off my dead body, but but sometimes it's really hard for people to know where you were. So if you were to spawn back in, as your automatic rifleman, let's say just for the sake of this video, let's say you died here in St. Mary Glees and people were heading, let's see, let's check the map, west, this westerly direction, and the rest of your squad is here. When you spawn in back here and people are like, well, where did you die? You can leave a ping on the map when you spawn back in. You can't do it now. You'd have to spawn back in. But for the rest of the tips, we're going to have to start our own squad. Let's lock it here and redeploy in. So that's what I call death pings. As a normal squad member, instead of, well, I mean, you can still say, uh, they're heading west off of my dead body or whatever, but if people don't know where that was, you can leave a ping on the map itself. Another tip, something that I like to use is what I call waypointing. Now let's say we're right here and we want to get to these buildings here, so let's just put our move mark up. Now you'll notice there's a lot of open ground between us and that move mark, and sometimes if you put a move mark up, your guys will just start, hauling butt just across this open field just because it's the shortest way to any, between 2 points is just a straight line. So what I like to do is called waypointing. I like to put a move mark somewhere that makes a little more sense, where there's a little more cover, you know, uh, maybe they'll take that fence line down to that move mark now. And you can also communicate this information. So get everyone over there and then put your move mark up here, so instead of just placing one move mark to your final destination, um, I like to do the waypointing thing. Another thing is distance checking. Um, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say we got some enemy activity going on in this house over there, and we wanna put an enemy infantry mark up. So let's do that. Well, that says 150 meters. That doesn't seem right. Doesn't that house seem like it's farther than 150 meters away? So let's check our map. Here's the house we're looking at right here, but here's our mark. So what happened? Well, I accidentally clicked on this fence post here. So let's remove our mark off of the map, you know, and sometimes you have to kind of double check. Always look at that distance. Does that seem right? You might have to double check your marks. Incorrect marks. What do I mean by incorrect marks? Well, when this new marking system came up, what I used to do whenever I would see enemy enemy supplies being airdropped is I would assume that the enemy was going to build a garrison, so let's say there's enemy supplies dropped over here. So I would put an enemy garrison mark down. Now what would happen sometimes is now I didn't actually see an enemy garrison. All I saw was supplies. Is the friendly commander would sometimes do a bombing run there because bombing runs can destroy enemy garrisons. So, I mean, I had that happen a couple times, and a commander yelled at me, and he was right. I was marking that incorrectly. Unfortunately, there is no enemy supply mark, but if you're going to do something like that, it's better to put enemy outpost or enemy infantry or observe, maybe an observe mark, something like that, other than an enemy garrison mark. Just make sure you're not just throwing marks up, um, for the heck of it. Make sure they're accurate because other people, rely on your marks for accurate and up-to-date information. Let's see. We talked about this in the squad leader video, but there are differences in the supplies you call in here. We'll cover this again. This call-in supplies, call-in supply drop on this position, visible to commander and officers. That's for an airdrop. You can see this parachute on top. Now sometimes when you don't want an airdrop, but you want your supply guy, you'd want to use this request supplies mark. It says request supplies at this position, visible to unit. So the only person that can see this is, your squad, and you're putting that down for your support player versus, you know, your commander dropping supplies. I know sometimes people put this down, you know, and they get a supply drop when they really wanted their support guy to drop supplies, and then the enemy, can see that airdrop coming in, and it's just not, make sure you know the difference between those two. Um, Line of sight versus indirect marks. What do I mean by that? Well, we see enemy infantry moving over here, so let's put a mark there, that's great, but another way to place marks is, by opening up the map, clicking the middle mouse button. So if you want your guys to secure a house that you can't see from your position, let's say, we want to go from here to here and we want to secure this little area here, I can't see that directly. So I'd want to put a move mark indirectly using the map. Just make sure you're using the map to put marks down. Also, right now there's kind of a bug. Um, let's say I wanted my guys to move, all the way down to this trench system here. Well, if I click there, you'll notice some of this is cut off on the bottom of the map. So make sure that you're pulling that up so you get your full list, you know, uh, and then move the map back to where you need it. Let's see, what else do I have written down here? Proper use of observe. I know a lot of people use observe just for another like mark, you know, um, enemy tank on my observe mark. Well, that's not really how that should be used unless you see more than, one or two enemy tanks. But the observe mark should really be used for like, hey, we just took this, the enemies, or we just lost St. Mary-Glise, let's say, and we're back here defending. Where are you expecting the enemy to come from? Hey, observe out here to the, you know, um, towards the east, and we expect enemy infantry coming from there. So get a guy to look in the direction you kind of expect things to be happening from. The last thing I'm going to talk about is ping visibility mistakes. Um, it's important to know who can see your pings. Like a lot of times in games, I'll be playing squad leader, Baker squad leader, and I'll have the alpha squad leader say, "Hey, Gebatron," or "Hey, Baker squad leader, on my ping I see a tank," or "On my ping I see enemy infantry." Well, I can't see that. Only my squad can see my pings. So and only Alpha or not Alpha. Um, is it Alpha? What is it? Able. Only Able can see Able mark or pings. You know. So it's important to know who can see what marks. That kind of concludes what I've discovered as some tips and tricks. Um, if you guys have any more information or some cool tips and tricks about this marking system, feel free to leave a comment. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel for more content like this. And thank you very much for watching, guys.